Hello, city builders. Welcome back to Nouveau Springs on the Azure Gulf map and the Sunset Harbor DLC. This is Hubbub. Great to have you here. I wanted to follow up the recent remapping of bus routes video with a shorter revisitation of mass transit in the city that I'm calling 50B, because this is not going to be a very long video, but I just want to recap my thinking and show viewers how everything has turned out at this point, at least. So at the end of that last video, I was offering some speculative thoughts about how I was thinking ridership had shifted, and I'm not sure I was completely recognizing exactly what was happening in a very precise way. And I'm going to go into this again and try to recover this. What's encouraging right now is I've been operating with despawn disabled for double-digit hours, and traffic has actually improved since the airport DLC went in, and I'll talk about that in a sec. We're up to 88% pretty regularly on traffic flow. And then when I look at behavior of riders, I've actually lost about 1,000 riders, but I think I have an explanation for why that's happening. And I haven't been totally rigorous about it and gone in and looked at my numbers previously, but logically this makes sense. I had dozens and dozens and dozens of unnecessary bus routes. Some of them were short-range neighborhood journeys, some of them were actually mid-range journeys, and a couple of them were long journeys if you think of a bus route traversing the entire main boulevard couplet, although that's really probably more like a mid-range journey. And I think what's happened is this: Sims that were on buses that were serving mid-range journeys have shifted to metro, tram, and passenger rail after those mid-range bus routes went away. Sims that were on short-range journeys that may not now be covered by short-range bus routes have taken to walking and riding bikes. And then Sims that needed those long-range journeys are still taking the long-range journeys. And the reason I think that is because despite the fact that I have about 1,000 fewer riders, my average traffic flow remains at 87-88%. Now, I don't know if this will show me... This will only show me cyclists. It won't show me actual drivers. So I can't actually measure the number of vehicles that are on the roads. But I can definitely notice that this traffic flow is the same as it was previously. So that's what I think is happening. I'm not 100% certain. Now I'm trying to avoid showing the airport, because I'm going to do another video on the airport. But the airport has, I think, played a role in improved traffic flow as well, because previously I had trains backed up for miles trying to access this cargo hub, and now we really don't have, although, I mean, we have this backup here, but it's not going to stay there for very long. Those trains will clear pretty quickly. And similarly, on the other end of the map, these trains are not hanging around for very long. Like you could see, there's a trail here, but it's not getting longer, and the map is not getting all gummed up with trains. We still have some issues with load size, and the irony is that the what was the name of that mod? The optimized outside connections mod actually has been updated for the airport's DLC, because immediately after the DLC was added, quite literally the map was just clogged with trains. So we can say with certainty that mod actually makes a huge difference in the game. But generally speaking, I think that's what's happening. And my evidence for that is traffic flow remains good, even though our mass transit ridership has dipped a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do for the rest of this video is just go through and re-optimize all of these to make sure that we're capturing every passenger we can. And obviously some of this will go into time lapse. I'm going to start with monorail, and all I'm doing is looking at the total number of passengers and looking to see if there are any stations with a glut of passengers not getting picked up. And when we look at this airport counter route, we're doing pretty well. We don't have trains bunching up. Now, it might be arguable that I could lose a train here, but I'm really a big fan of the motto, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. This city has a healthy treasury, has healthy cash flow, and so we can support this budget if there's a few too many trains here. So I'm just going to keep going through this. It makes me excited to see over 1,000 passengers on a single line like that. And then the airport clocker. So this is a route that traverses the perimeter of the entire city going clockwise, and the counter is going counterclockwise. This one has about 200 fewer passengers, but again, we can see that there's no backup of standing riders at any stations. And when we go through all of these, we're going to see the same story. They're all pretty well optimized. I don't think at this point we're going to see any shoot, what's the word I want? Any bunching of trains. They're all moving at pretty decent paces. So I do try to remove trains as I can if it's practical, because that way there are fewer trains on the lines, and that means there's a lower possibility of bunching. But obviously I don't want passengers standing waiting, because that will accumulate over time. Along all of these lines, it looks like we're doing pretty well. Okay, so I might go into time lapse here in a sec, but there's not that many monorail lines. Okay, and we take a look at the orange line. Okay, looking pretty good. And I will periodically check the overall performance, because that's an indicator that maybe I have some trains backed up. See, now we're up to 9,700 here. That's really encouraging, although that fluctuates a bit. Okay, so now that I have finished with the monorails, let's take a gander at the rail lines, the clock loop. We have 3 trains. It looks like we're picking up passengers. Trains are full, but we don't have a glut of passengers sitting at stations. Maybe a little bit of bunching here we want to keep our eye on, but this is looking just fine. The counter loop here, this is just fine. This is fine. Might end up with a glut of passengers here. We'll see. But this has been running for several hours, and so I'm going to bet that we're fine there with 2 trains on that line. The Burb Mirror has 2 trains, and we are handling that load just fine. We could almost get away with 1 train, but then people would be standing for a long time waiting. Similarly here, we have 2 trains, and this line is doing just fine. So trains are in good shape. Now let's take a look at trams. Or light rail are doing a pretty good job of picking up passengers. Now, we see a little bit of bunching. The issue with some of these tram lines is if I come down to this Central Park over here, you'll see I have this really extensive transfer point that's embedded into the park itself. integrated in the park itself, and so I can't take the risk that, because look at all these passengers, and so there's a point when, there's a point when we might end up with a glut. You can't assume that because, see, and so I need these empty cars here because they're going to empty out that stop pretty quickly, actually. And so we need this volume of cars on this route. Let's see. So some of this I may time lapse through, but when we look at these, I'm seeing a network that's functioning really well. Again, we have this, like, I could probably get away with dropping this to 4 trains, but I never know when there's going to be a surge of unexpected passengers. And so as long as I'm remaining stable with the budget, with the treasury, then I'm okay with having a little bit of excess capacity. Main loop counter. Okay, let's look at the radio tower line number 2. Now let's take a look at Metro. And then I promise that I will time lapse the bus. So these are some of my favorite vehicles in this build. These are, I want to say, either Rev Zero or Mesh D Sydney cars, and they're gorgeous cars, even though right now they're underground. Huge capacity, and they're gonna move everybody that I need moved. So that's that station I was mentioning. Huge numbers of Sims coming through this one station right here, which does not cause me to lose any sleep, because that train's going to pull in, pick up all of those passengers, and keep the flow going.
Insurance comes in. We provide peace of mind for
water
when you
to
rest in peace.
Clocker. Now let's look at counter.
Okay,
same drill. We have an extra train here just to keep the flow moving. Not sure that the numbers really justify it, but that's okay. One more. Okay, looking great. So I think we checked everything. I checked my trains, checked my metro, checked passenger rail, so we're good. So the only thing that's left is to go through buses. And I'm happy to do that on camera, but we're definitely going to time lapse this, because even though I optimized everything, I went from about 70 to 80 bus routes down to 60. It's still a lot of buses. Now, I don't have to go through all of them, because when you get down to this end, they're all pretty well optimized, because they all have sufficient. Like, the only issue here is some of my bus routes are really not well conceived, because some of them I simply don't have anywhere close to 100% car trips saved. Okay, so this is probably going to get time lapsed. I mean, I could add a bus to this line, but we're actually in pretty good shape, because we've got another one swinging around right now.
I'm alone in the dark, can I be where you are? You were gone from the start, now you tear me apart. I gave you my trust, but you treated me like I couldn't see. of her mind. Suddenly the rain has wiped away the dust from my eyes. I'm alone in the dark, can I be where you are? You were gone from the start, now you tear me apart. I gave you my trust, but you treated me like I couldn't see. I thought you were the one, but I know that I'll never be the girl that you need. You need. You would feel the same if you were at the back of her mind. Suddenly the rain has wiped away the dust from my eyes. You would feel the same if you were at the back of her mind. Suddenly the rain has wiped away the dust from my eyes.
Irregular environment in schools.
Okay, city builders, welcome back. I just finished optimizing everything. I'm going to talk about it in a second, then I'm going to sign off. But first, I just want to take a look at my train lines and make sure, because we are on despawn and disabled, so I want to make sure that I don't have any gluts of trains. And you can see, yes, there's some moments where trains have to slow down and wait, but even through this, now this was native to the map, and that's why I left it. That turnabout there, I don't know enough about trains. I'm guessing that might not be considered realistic, but you never know. I haven't seen anything like that in real life, but it was in the map. But this is not turning into a backup. It's momentarily clogged, and the trains will clear through. So everything's looking, in terms of traffic flow. Now let's see. It looks like we might have a little bit of backup here. Nope, they're moving. These trains are definitely moving. So the addition of the cargo airport, which I'm deliberately not showing, definitely cleared up some of the congestion on the industrial port by taking a lot of that traffic from the northern side of the map that was coming down here away. But we still have traffic flow down here, which is cool. And so we can look at this and we could say, yep, we've got despawn disabled. We're at 87. About 50% of the time, anecdotally speaking, I'd say that creeps up to 88%. There it is right there, which makes me almost ecstatic. I wish I could figure out what to tweak to squeeze out 90% in this build, but I don't think I'm going to get there. So, and certainly not at this particular juncture, at least in this video. And again, we're moving now about we are moving almost exactly 1,000 people less, and those are people that we lost in busing. So I am hypothesizing that those were short-term journeys, that the mid-range journeys transferred over to train, metro, and tram, and then longer-range journeys transferred over to monorail. And it makes me rethink my approach to flow and movement, because all along I've been putting in bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, but I've always kind of prioritized trying to have high transport counts on mass transit. And the reality is, if you have bike and pedestrian infrastructure, you don't necessarily need, obviously you don't need the mass transit to move people around, because as I've already said a couple times, traffic flow is in really good shape, even though my ridership has fallen, which means that I don't know any other way to read that. People are walking and biking instead of driving their cars. So that's a good thing, in my opinion. In any event, that's about all I have for this short recap video. I'd very much like to thank you for following. This is Hubbub, signing off.